Hey yo, Samjo here, and today I have a game review. I just played my good buddy Tony from work, and honestly, I think Tony is one of the best players I've ever played. The I always played him at work, and I don't think I've ever lost to him, but the I'm pretty sure he was taking it easy on me at work because just to try to get me into chess because I'm looking at his ratings on all these other games that he has and he is well beyond uh I think he's the best in my friend group. So anyway, so I have black and I'm playing Tony. I just added him like 2 weeks ago. I think it was about a week ago and he challenged me to our first game and here's how it went. So I have the game review open. And I do like these like longer 3 day games because it allows me to kind of calculate, kind of multiple moves ahead, kind of play like logic the moves out a little bit more, which I do enjoy, as opposed to the much faster blitz where I'm just trying to get the pieces going and move on intuition. So it is a different game. So he starts off with the king's pawn, and I tried to and already already I don't think this it doesn't like me use with that move. I think what did it want me to do? Okay, that's what I was going to do, right? But I figured like going back, right? I'm trying to attack that king's pawn because it currently is like has no defenders, right? And if he doesn't defend it, I can just take it. So that's kind of my rationale on it. If there's any reasoning why I should play the queen's pawn before, just let me know. I do think, I mean, we develop, and I do end up playing that move, but I think I do. He does push that pawn, which ends up kicking my knight, which I guess is the reason why the engine didn't like that move, which I get. So I and I guess the engine just doesn't like anything I do with this knight. So I poke the knight in there. I'm okay with the trading. Like I offer an even trade of pieces, right? Because I think his knight has a better grasp of the center than mine, and right any other square, right? If I had moved the knight right in front of the queen, it would be blocking my white squared bishop in, right? And I didn't like that. And then the other two squares available would be on the H file and the G file. The and both of those are attacked by his queen, or it would make my knight liable to just get. He could just push a pawn and I have to move my knight again, right? So I feel like I'm wasting moves while he's getting free development. So that's kind of why I offer the trade. I'm sure there's another move. Let me just. I'm just curious. Let me just see what the engine. Okay, so the engine just wanted me to move back and block my light squared bishop in. I'm not sure I agree with. Right. I mean, obviously the engine probably knows best, and that's probably the best move. But I'm not good enough to understand why that is preferred over just trading off my weaker knight for his strong knight. So anyway, we go ahead and trade, right? And then he pushes that pawn, which the engine doesn't like. I push my pawn to defend the pawn that I just captured in front of his king. He pushes the G pawn to kick my bishop back. I just push my bishop back, right? Keep my defense on that pawn. So he pushes that pawn that just attacked the king's pawn there. Uh, I think, right, like, and my thought process here is that if he if I don't do something right with my bishop or something for my bishop, he can just push that pawn again, and my bishop I would just lose a bishop because it would just be trapped, right? And so for that reason, I push that pawn, and I I really don't agree with this move being a mistake, right? Because I prevent myself from losing a bishop. So again, right, if anyone's watching this, just let me know, right? I'm really very much in the learning stages of the high like getting better, right? At this point, I really just know how the pieces move and then kind of logically try to make the best move based on logic. I really don't know much theory. I don't know, like, kind of like what is required for long term or like standard opening, stuff like that, right? So just stuff like that would help. But I'm just gonna go ahead and yeah. So that's why. So it liked that move, the king's pawn, which I think does the same thing, right? It and that makes sense to me, right? Like, so if he does push that pawn now in order to attack my bishop, I can just take it, and then he can't take back because otherwise I will go up a pawn. So that makes sense. Cool. See, and that's why I do love these game reviews that I have access to now. Well, I mean, this is just the one free game review. So yeah. So he pushes that pawn. Engine doesn't like that. What did they want? Okay, so yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, I'm sure that's I don't. He could take it, and I would take it back. We'd just be even. So, cool. So I do end up, and that's the thing, right? So I do end up pushing that pawn anyway. I did have that as a move because I do need to develop that bishop. So he tries to develop his bishop, and again, engine doesn't like that. It makes sense, right? Because I did pounce on that because his queen was blocking. It was defending that pawn. When his bishop moved in front of his queen, I can just grab that pawn. He kicks my queen out. And one thing I did like about this game for me, right, as I was pretty aggressive with the queen earlier, saw the opportunity and pounced. But you'll see, right, like just that queen being that queen will stay in that spot for pretty much the rest of this game until towards the end, because it, for better or for worse, right, that just happened to be the spot she got stuck in. So anyway, I move her back here, right, to attack the pawn that has no defender on the B file. I think that makes sense to me. I was considering just moving to C5, Queen C5, but this did, because I do want to stay on this diagonal, this dark square diagonal, because I see that my next move after this, I want to push E4 to E3, because then I have a protected passed pawn that's now attacking his piece, his bishop, his dark square bishop. So, I mean, I did like that idea. And then, so that's why I kept it on that diagonal. He pushes that pawn, right, to prevent me from just taking it. I think that's fine. And then, and then I execute the plan that I was thinking, which is, again, pushing my passed pawn to attack the bishop that's protected. So anyway, he makes the best move. He moves the bishop back. I still leave my pawn there. I think it's, to me, right, like his king, I just need to check his king, right? Like in my brain, if I can get my knight closer, maybe on D3, once he develops his queen or his light squared bishop to different squares, like I have some potential to trap the king. So I get my knight involved. And the other thing I'm thinking about, right, I use that knight to block the D file so that I can castle queenside. That's the other thing I consider. I did consider moving my dark square bishop to C5 to double up the protection on that pawn on E3. And then that would allow me to castle kingside. I'm not sure how well that would have gone, because I mean, I do end up, so let me just, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, right? So Tony plays H4, and I think this is a good move. I think this is a threatening move, right? Because again, all he has to do is push it one more time, and now my bishop is literally just, he's that's it. he's being attacked, and he has one square, and then if he pushes his if he goes g5 to g6, right, then I have to take it with my pawn, and then he can either open up, right, his h file. He's always threatening that. And I don't know. I just didn't like the follow on attacks with that, especially because his queen has an open diagonal to enter in through the h file there. So that's why I went ahead and blocked passage of that pawn. I don't. I think what the engine probably would have wanted me to do is just move. Oh, okay. So he did want me to castle. So that makes sense. So I do end up doing that eventually, right? So I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Yeah, I'm trying to get better at these reviews as well. So it wanted me to castle earlier, but again, I already told you, like, that was my plan, right? So I moved my bishop in there to stack up that defense on that pawn because he moved his rook. He went rook to h3, attacking my pawn that's very much passed, right? So I bring my bishop in there to defend it. He moves his queen in there to attack. So now, I'm calculating, if he takes it with the bishop, I take it with the bishop, and then I basically lost that pawn. That's, I think that works for him. He kind of goes, I think I'm up a pawn at this point for my queen sniping, and so that is the only advantage I have, right? So I go ahead and push it. The reason being, right, and again, the engine did like this, which I liked, right? So I push it to reveal a discovered attack on that knight, which has no defenders. I'm also essentially forcing him to take it, because if he takes it with his bishop, I will take his knight. And I'm opening up a line here for my bishop to check his king, and then I can also follow up with the queen depending on the defenses, how they shake out. So I think this starts to create opportunities for me. He makes the best move, right? He makes the best move and takes the pawn. So I go ahead and check, and that's good, right? It's a good move there. He does move the king out of the way, and then here I see another opportunity, right? Because this is what seals the deal for me to go castle queenside, because I was talking about going kingside as well. So I went queenside because now I'm really threatening a discovered pinning of the queen if I just moved my knight, right? So that's kind of what I was thinking. That's what seals the deal for me on the queen side. So he moves the king out of the way. I don't really think that's bad. Like, I think that's very crazy that maybe you just wanted him to develop his queen, right? Because I think that was good in order for me to not just pin his queen to his king, but probably maybe just moving the queen, maybe to c4. That's maybe what I would have done. No, they wanted him to block the attack. So anyway, I still so this I thought about this move for a while. I went ahead and attacked anyway, because really in my mind I'm trying to look for a mate here, right? Because his king is really just locked. He's got 3 squares left with his king, right? And I have a bishop that's in there, and my plans here involve, I do want to double up my rooks and then try to stack an attack there. So that's kind of my thought process here. I'm very curious to see the miss here, because it says that I could have just won his queen through a discovered attack. And let me just see what that is. Okay, so it involves me just taking that pawn. So if I took that pawn, so I don't really see how I win the queen, because he can just, so the queen can go to, he can't go to c4, right? He can't go to the b or a files because my queen is protecting it. He can't stay where he is. right? Oh, okay. Yeah, I screwed up. I see it now. So had I just attacked that pawn, right, he is essentially forced to take my rook on d8 with his queen and check me, and then I would take back, because any other spot for that queen result, like, it's protected, because that knight, because that's the, see, the f3 was, I thought, completely safe for the queen. But yeah, no, it can't stay on this file, and every other file is covered by the knight or the queen or the bishop. My bishop on f2. So yeah, okay, so that was a miss on my part for sure. So I'm glad I can start seeing these things now. So he moved his queen out of the way, right? So he capitalizes on my mistake and my miss. So here, I was debating, right? And I'm glad that the engine thought that this was the best move, but I really was not. I just as easily could have moved my rook to d7, because later on I was contemplating that maybe I should have done that, because that prevents him from pinning, or at least attacking my rook with his light squared bishop going to g2, which is what he ends up doing. And so now I'm concerned, right? Because I don't necessarily want to just leave this piece there. And so I thought about this move for a little while, and I ended up going knight e4, right, to block the bishop's attack on my rook. It also, there's some side effects here, right? Should he decide to trade bishop for knight, I can kind of unlock my light squared bishop a little bit, because it really is kind of stuck there on g6. It would require like 3 moves and a couple pawn pushes for me to actually activate my light squared bishop. So that's kind of my thought process, right? If he does trade, I can take with the pawn, and then I can push the pawn, threaten a check, with my bishop on g6. It would also, I like, if it would also go. It can be pushed to defend my bishop on f2 if needed, right? So I think it opens up some options for me. He doesn't end up taking it, and he attacks with the knight instead. I think this is a good move, because I'm concerned about my one weak spot in this whole position, right? I've got 2 pawns that are just not defended. The pawn on e6 and g7. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at here, and I'm like, oh man, he's going to start infiltrating. That is the other benefit of my rook d5 move, was that it kind of blocked his queen from just infiltrating and taking e6, which then I think would have really changed this game, right? Because I think one of the thing that kind of helped me here is just kind of keeping his queen at bay while trying to build this attack here. So in order to prevent that knight from infiltrating and start to crumble my pawn structure there, I go ahead and trade, right? Which I'm glad to see that was the best move there. I go ahead and trade it, because that knight was much stronger than my bishop, because I actually thought that bishop was going to be much stronger than it was. And really, once it got that check off on the king, he really couldn't do much. Every other spot was defended. He had a pretty solid defense of pieces, just covering any other square that dark square bishop could go to. So we trade pieces there, and so I push this pawn, right? Because my goal here is to, what I see that his king and queen are lined up again, right? So I see this, and what I want to do, right, is go king to b8, because I don't like the idea of this pawn being pinned to the king, right? And then once I go king to b8, I would like to follow up with rook c8, right? To activate my rook from h8. And that would essentially give me an opportunity to then follow up with, I can take the pawn on d4 and then reveal a pin queen. Sorry, pin his queen to his king, and then I can go up a queen, right? So I'm trying to make up for the fact that I straight up missed taking his queen earlier. So that's kind of what my thought process is here. Obviously, not a fan. The engine is not a fan of both our next moves. So, I think he sees that pawn as a weak spot, right? Because it's pinned. I can't attack with it right now. And because he goes to defend it, now I'm realizing, okay, so that pawn is actually pinned. So I go ahead and move my king over. Again, 3 consecutive moves that are disliked by the engine. So, and I'm good at this point, and I'm going to execute my plan, which is stack my rook to c8 next turn, right? To then threaten the pawn capture to pin the queen. So he moves his king over here, and this thing says it's a blunder, and I'm confused because I see it, right? And I'm not sure, and we'll see, right? I haven't played through the whole thing. So, because I do calculate this, because now instead of his like going for that pinning the queen on the king plan, I am thinking about, okay, what if I stack my rooks? So I'll go rook d8, right? Stack my rooks, and then I could attack with the rook. He would take with the bishop. Then I would take with the rook again, and it's a fork, right? I've forked his queen and king, and he moves his king away, and then I can just take his queen. However, what I'm thinking is, okay, well, is it worth giving up 2 rooks for a bishop and a queen? And a pawn, I guess. And theoretically, right, like points value wise, I'm sure I think it's even, but I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. Like, really, I'm not sure that, and here's the other thing I'm thinking of, right? And as you can see, I don't end up doing that plan, because the other thing I was thinking of was going to, with this, because this is the move I end up doing, right? So what I'm thinking is I'm going to reveal a discovered attack when I go c takes d4. Because then, like, it's an attack on the queen. So, and maybe I was just thinking too small here, right? Because I figured if he doesn't do anything, like, I have the potential to take with the pawn, reveal the attack on the queen. He needs to move his queen away, right? And he doesn't have too many spots. He'd probably have to move queen to a4. Yeah, that's the only. Yeah, he's got to go queen a4, right? And if he goes queen a4, I'm still maintaining the potential for the fork later, right? With the rooks that I was talking about. And also, right, if he does go queen a4, I can then follow up with, since my pawn had taken his pawn to reveal the attack, I can just take his dark squared bishop and go and take the bishop on e3. So that's kind of what I was thinking here. So he stacks his rook, and here I am starting to get a little concerned, because I was thinking about this. If I do, so now if I do take that pawn, like I was planning on with my pawn, he can play checkmate. And Tony's good, right? This is why I actually think Tony's a lot better than he lets on, because that's kind of, so I thought about this next move for a while. I then decided to go rook d8, right? And to go execute my previous plan, because if my rook is there, that's what allows him to, take my rook with the queen and checkmate me, right? But if it's on the adjacent square, then I block the checkmate. So And now, right, I also am now threatening that fork plan with the double rook, the double rook attack on d4. So he goes ahead and sends his bishop in, right? And here I thought for a while as well, right? Again, these are not necessarily super timed games. So he went and he captured my knight, right? That's what he just captured. Yep, he captures my knight. And I was my initial temptation was to just capture back with f takes e4, but right, this is where I really kind of contemplated like because I know I can win his queen, right? I know I can just based on this exchange of the rook takes d4, and if he takes back, I mean he has to take back, right? He has to take back with the bishop, and then I take with the rook again. Then he's going to take with the queen, and then I win his queen, but I literally lose. So I win a queen, a bishop, his dark squared bishop, and a pawn, like the initial pawn. Whereas he also gets a pawn, and then he gets both my rooks. That's why I was hesitant. And I was thinking like, hey, is this really worth it? And so I thought about it for a while. Because my initial, the other thing I was thinking of was if I took it with the bishop. Sorry, if I went pawn takes e4, I would check, and if he moved his king to e2, if he went king e2, then I've completely lost. I feel like his king can just go and hide on the other side of the board from where all of my powerful pieces are, right? Whereas, however, if he did stay on this file or move to the right side of the board, then I think that f takes e4 would have been okay, because he'd be in check, right? And then I can, if he stayed on this file, then I still maintain that fork threat with the double rooks, and that would allow me to essentially, okay, then the aftermath would be I would get both his bishops, his pawn, and his queen, and in exchange for a pawn and two rooks, and that would have been a lot more appealing to me. However, I think Tony would have gone to e2 after I checked him with the king, and he would have moved his king to safety. So I end up going with to execute the rook fork plan, the double rook fork plan. Right? He takes back, I take back, and there's my fork. He takes with the queen, and I take with a pawn, which I don't really understand is, oh, I see. It probably wanted me to capture with, no, to capture with the other pawn. Let's see. No, my move. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So then he would have taken with his queen, and then I would have lost a bishop. I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I guess the concept is that I would get a passed pawn, right? But like in the passed pawn being c5. But I mean, it's not even a passed pawn. I think the passed pawn they're talking about is e4, but it's not going to be a passed pawn, because he would take it with the queen, because he already has lost the queen based on the other forks. Because the other option is just moving his king, going king e2, and then preserving his queen. But like, I don't, which is what I think he would do, which doesn't really. I just threw away two rooks for that, right? Like if I don't win the queen on this, I am so losing that it's insane. So again, if somebody sees what the engine is talking about, please let me know. But I went ahead and captured the queen, right? He moves his bishop back, and I actually did not like this move from him, because I think a more optimal move for him would have been bishop to f3, right? Because again, the only thing now at this point, now that my rooks are traded off, is that's keeping my bishop on g6, is trying to defend the pawn on h5, right? If his bishop attacks that pawn. Otherwise, if it has no attacks, like I will keep my light square bishop on that diagonal, push my g7 pawn, so that I just create that gridlock on that side, and then I can be active on the right side of the board with both my queen and my light squared bishop, right? So that's kind of the plan I'm looking at. That pawn will end up staying a passed pawn, right? Because there's no other pawns that can get it, and he can't obviously take it with his king at the moment because it's being defended by the queen. However, right, and it's on a dark square, so it can't be attacked by the light square bishop. So that's kind of the things I'm thinking about. So I end up, so he does move his bishop all the way out there, which allows me to activate my light squared bishop and go bishop to e8, right? Which I'm glad that the engine likes. The game review likes it, which is good. Okay, so then he goes back, right? I think he realized that that's what that bishop was there for. But at this point, right, I've already gotten what I needed. I've got my bishop out of the way. I can defend that pawn anytime by going g6. So I'm not too concerned at that pawn, because as long as I can keep checking him, because I have a double diagonal kind of attack I can do now on the right side. As long as I can keep checking him, this will be okay, right? Because as long as, until the turn that I can't check him, then I'll push that pawn. So I go ahead and check. He moves back. Okay, and then I thought of checking with the queen here, right? Things I was thinking about. I thought of checking with the queen, and if he goes king c2, then I can attack. I can go queen to c3, and then I think I can really just kind of like really start infiltrating there, and I don't think he would have many plays, right? So I didn't think he would go to c2 with the king, right? So I figured he would just back up to the left side, right? Like as we discussed earlier, because the left side is a lot more free of all pieces, right? And I'm not home free here, right? Because all he's trying to, I'm still concerned about his rook's stacking on c3 for him to go eventually rook c3. Then he threatens checkmate. It's the same concept same threat that he had with his queen earlier, and he's still threatening checkmate on c8. The only things that are preventing him from stacking those rooks right now is literally the passed pawn, right? And that was not. It's not like I was thinking about that threat when I took with the pawn. I just kind of took it, but it is nice that that's coming in handy at this point, right? Plus, that's the cost of that bishop, of his bishop on f3, is that it prevents his rook from having scope and locks his rook on h3, and he's got to maneuver to h2 if he wants to move anything right now. So anyway, he goes back, and right, instead of checking him with the queen, I go ahead and just button up my weakness on my on my left side here, because on the left side of the board, that's what I meant to say, because that is the only thing that prevents his bishop from infiltrating on my left side. Now, after moving this, it kind of locks that gridlock there, which allows me to freely play with this diagonal check and see what goes on. He moves his bishop back. I don't think the engine doesn't like it. I don't necessarily like it either, because I think it's very passive. It kind of puts his bishop in a corner. I am at this point considering multiple moves here. I'm considering going to d3, as in, pawn push to d3, because it's still defended. It blocks his rook, maintains his rook blockage over there. And then if he does do the move that I'm afraid of him doing, is going f1, bishop to f1, because then he would win the pawn, and then we would trade bishops, and my bishop is a lot more threatening than his bishop, right? Because I'm in a little mating dance going on between my bishop and my queen. So that's why I was a little hesitant to push the pawn, which I think in hindsight, right? If he did go bishop f1 after I push my pawn to d3, it would actually have allowed me to go queen f2 to check, and I don't think I think he would have had to. Yeah, he would have gone to c3. He would have gone c3, and I can push the pawn again at this point, and then he has to essentially give up that file with this rook to block the pawn from promoting. Yeah, I could see the merits of that. Let me see, like, right. So I don't end up pushing it though, right? Because I end up going with that, continuing the mating dance here. I don't understand how this is a fork that will win me a bishop, though. I don't understand that. So, cool. I do that. I'm threatening to play checkmate because my next move would be queen to e2. And my buddy Tony resigns at this point. I did take a little while to play this move, actually. So, good game, Tony. That was amazing. I like the pawn gridlock here on the left side here is very interesting to me. That it basically just locked the left side of the board through the whole game, and my queen didn't move until it was the end game. So it moved in the beginning, then stuck in the middle game, literally didn't do anything, and then as we approached the end game, she put in some work there. However, right, I don't necessarily think that he was done here, right? I think he had things I was worried about, right? Rook c2. His rook c2, I can't just take his pawn. So I would have to, and I would go and check him on either a1 or b1 with the queen, of course. And he can just bring his rook back and block the check. And really, my queen can't go anywhere after that. Like, I could go to b2, right? And he can just bring his rook back. And then, so eventually I would just have to retreat the same way I came in and retreat to a5. That is the only way my queen gets out of this, right? Because I don't, sure, I'm threatening to play checkmate, right? But he blocks this checkmate by just moving rook to c2. And I have to just move the queen back to a5 and then just play it by ear. Yes, I want another pawn, right? So it's going to be slow. Like it feels slow. And I'm looking at this bar here, and it's like way in my favor. And I didn't really see that when I was playing. So I don't know what follow-on moves I'm missing. I kind of wish he, I guess I could look at this show moves, right? He's got rook c2, right, which is what I was thinking, and rook queen a1 check. He goes rook c1, and then I go queen to a3. Okay. And then he goes bishop takes b7. I don't understand why that would be. I don't understand why anyone would do that. He's just yeeting his bishop in there. Which, again, at this point, right, like it doesn't have any squares to actually go to. Like, it can go to, I suppose at this point, I could go, no, I don't, no, I think that's silly. I don't think that bishop takes b7 is valid. I'm sorry, I don't see that. So, regardless, right, I'm not too sure on the follow-up moves if he does go rook c1, rook c2 to block my queen's advance. I would probably at that point try to push my pawn to d3 and try to make some stuff work there. I think that This definitely has potential there because if I push my pawn to d3 and then, you know, try to attack with the queen on that angle, he can't go rook c2 anymore because I can just take his rook with my pawn. So cool. All right, I think I see why he resigned at this point, and I can see the advantage, but I think there was still some game to be played. But good game, Tony. Really appreciate you reaching out, and hope we have many more to come. All right, good game. Thank you for joining me on this game review. I thought it was very useful for me. I'm really learning the intricacies here. I do like it when it gives me the star, right? Oh yes, I played the best move, but I do find I do like that, I did eventually play the move that they wanted me to play last turn, right? The previous turn. And just, maybe a move or two late, because I did see those moves that it wanted me to. So yeah, so that, that is good. That is good that I'm starting to get there. So anyway, I appreciate you joining me for this game review. Have a happy, what day is it today? Wednesday. Have a happy Wednesday night. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.